They call Japan the Tomorrowland. Technology, fashion, gadgets, toilets, you name it. Everything looks like a scene out of cyberpunk. But there's a surprising fact that sets it even further apart from the rest of the world. Imagine a place where, despite the dense population, hardly anyone is homeless, almost 0%. While other countries, like the United States, grapple with more people living on the streets each year, Japan seems to have cracked the code. But hold on, if you peek behind the success story, things start looking less rosy. There's a hidden side, a kind of dark secret. So, how did Japan pull off the near-zero homelessness feat, and why isn't it at all good news? Come along as we dig into the mystery, uncovering the real story behind Japan's 0% homelessness rate. This isn't just a success tale, it's the dark secret of how Japan tackled homelessness, bringing to light some uncomfortable truths about Japanese society. Let's take a trip back in time to understand how Japan's journey with homelessness began. After the ravages of World War II, the economy lay in ruins, and many found themselves without a home. Fast forward to the 1960s, and the Japanese economic miracle brought a ray of hope, reducing the number of homeless folks. However, the story took a turn in the 1990s. The burst of the Japanese assets price bubble and the ensuing lost decade of economic slowdown led to more people facing unemployment. With fewer job opportunities, the risk of homelessness loomed larger. In 1997, Tokyo acknowledged the existence of homeless groups and started paying attention to their concerns. By 1998, officials admitted to about 3,700 homeless individuals in Tokyo. However, homeless support groups believed the number was closer to 5,000 and rising rapidly. The employment landscape was changing too. Part-time and temporary jobs, often paying minimum wage, became more common in Japan. Legislation changes in 1986 and 1999 contributed to this shift. Renting a place in Japan typically required a hefty deposit and 3 months rent up front, making it tough for those in unstable employment to secure housing. This added to the homelessness challenge. To make matters worse, bureaucratic hurdles made it difficult for homeless individuals to access welfare benefits they were entitled to. Recognizing the need for change, in August 2002, Japan enacted the Special Act in regards to supporting the autonomy of the homeless population. This aimed to cut through red tape and make it easier for homeless people to receive support. As the years passed, part-time and temporary employment continued to rise. In 2019, Japan had a staggering 22 million part-time and temporary workers, compared to 17 million in 2011, according to Japan's Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. The struggle for stable employment and housing persisted, laying the groundwork for Japan's evolving approach to homelessness. Now that we are all caught up with history, let's dive into the official explanation behind Japan's astoundingly low homelessness rate. In a country with over 125 million people, official statistics claim there are only around 3,000 homeless individuals, a mere 0.003% of the population. That's considerably lower than other countries with commendable rates, like Switzerland, and leaps ahead of the United States. But why? Firstly, being homeless in Japan is no walk in the park. It's tough, and the culture adds an extra layer of difficulty. Homelessness is heavily stigmatized here. A founder of a non-profit supporting the homeless in Japan notes that there's a lack of compassion for these individuals. They're often viewed as solely responsible for their situation, deserving of no help. This stigma is particularly potent because the majority of Japan's homeless are men, traditionally expected to be self-reliant. Their failure is seen as not just a personal setback, but an embarrassment to the public and themselves. To make matters worse, authorities make it hard to be homeless. Public begging is prohibited by law, and cities like Tokyo employ what's known as anti-homeless or hostile architecture. Parks are locked at night to prevent sleeping, and benches are intentionally uncomfortable, discouraging homeless individuals from staying in the area. Being homeless becomes both a challenge and socially unacceptable. Japan's unique policies, not explicitly aimed at reducing homelessness, also contribute to the low numbers. The country has stringent laws on drugs, with severe punishments. As a result, only 1.6% of the Japanese population has tried drugs other than alcohol in their lifetime, compared to 46% of Americans. Drug addiction is barely an issue in Japan. The robust healthcare system is another piece of the puzzle. In the United States, 30 to 35% of homeless individuals have a mental illness. In Japan, people with severe mental illnesses are often placed in mental health institutions rather than ending up on the streets. Lastly, Japan's approach to housing sets it apart. Unlike many Western countries where building regulations complicate housing construction, Japan embraces the opposite. Few restrictions make it easy and relatively affordable to build houses. This combination of factors paints a picture of a country that seems to have conquered a major social issue. However, as we'll uncover, the reality is more complex than it appears on the surface. Now we'll unveil the dark reality of Japan's so-called 0% homelessness. Despite what official numbers claim, the situation is far more grim, with many more people without a home in Japan. But here's the catch: they are hidden away from sight, masked by government statistics. In the 1990s, Japan was hit hard by an economic crisis. The collapse of stock and real estate markets made it incredibly tough to secure steady, well-paying jobs. Millions found themselves surviving on low-paying, temporary part-time jobs, creating what became known as Japan's lost generation. These individuals, with no status, no place in society, and seemingly no future, face difficulties holding down apartments and paying rent in what should be a relatively affordable Japan. But they didn't want to end up on the streets, facing societal shame and stigma. Enter the phenomenon of cyber homelessness. Japan's extensive network of 24-hour internet and manga cafes became makeshift shelters for the lost generation. These individuals, often working low-paying jobs, started using these cafes as temporary homes. The cafes expanded their services over time, offering food, drinks, fresh underwear, and showers. It became an industry, a uniquely Japanese concept of commercial homeless shelters, ones you have to pay for yourself. These net cafe refugees, as they're known in Japan, are homeless. They lack a permanent address and are excluded from many aspects of life. However, they don't fit the traditional image of homelessness. They don't sleep outside, they work and strive to maintain a clean, polite appearance to avoid the shame associated with homelessness in Japan. Government statistics on homelessness in Japan are considered widely underestimated. Non-government organizations estimate that the real numbers are at least 3 times higher. The existence of net cafe refugees makes this evident. In 2020, it was estimated that at least 15,000 people lived in cyber cafes in Tokyo alone, 5 times the official number of homeless people in the entire country. On the surface, this cyber homelessness might seem positive, helping people avoid the rock bottom of society while maintaining some level of dignity. However, it also highlights deep-seated problems in Japanese society. A third of the Japanese workforce, over 22 million people, are part-time or temp workers, not by choice, but because they can't secure a regular full-time job. While not all of them are homeless, most earn only minimum wage, struggle to afford normal rent, and see no improvement in their economic prospects. So, even though Japan's official homelessness rate is lower than in the US, the percentage of people living in poverty is higher. Many end up on the fringe of society, stuck in cyber cafes and capsule hotels, caught in a cycle of not being able to get a proper job to secure an apartment, and not being able to get an apartment to secure a proper job due to societal pressures. They prefer to remain invisible, and society prefers it that way too. A problem that stays out of sight can be easily ignored. The government can continue claiming a 0% homelessness rate, but underneath lies a symbol of everything that went wrong with the Japanese economy, a problem here to stay as the number of the invisible homeless is only set to grow. And that is it for this video. If you like this unfiltered exploration about Japan's homelessness, make sure to subscribe for more content.